WorldMag.com presents Andrée Seu, senior writer for World and author of We Shall Have Spring Again and other books. God is the good parent, the good husband, the good friend, and our deliverer. In this week's podcast, Andrée Seu concludes her study of Psalm 40 by asking, what are God's thoughts toward us?
As for me, I am poor and needy, but the Lord takes thought for me. You are my help and my deliverer. Do not delay, O my God. The psalm ends in urgency. Starting in verse 11, we knew that something was up, and in verse 12 he spelled it out. There are all kinds of evils threatening to engulf me, including my own sin. In the light of that blurted SOS, we recognize that the first 10 verses of the psalm were a building up and a positioning himself to make the bold requests that he pours out in the second part of the psalm. First, he praised God for past deliverances in verses 1 through 3. Then he praised him for more wonderful works than he can count in verses 4 through 5. Then he reminded God that he has delighted in him and not passed up opportunities to praise him in public, verses 6 through 10. Lastly, he poured out the gunny sack full of his troubles, holding nothing back. He ends with the consciousness he began with. He is poor and needy. He couldn't extract himself from the pit in verse 2, and he can't do it now. This is not false humility, but a sober reckoning of his ability without God. But the Lord takes thought for me. This fact that God thinks about him must be really impressive to the psalmist, because it is the second time he mentions it. See verse 5. What is man that you bother with him, Lord? Psalm 8, verse 4. And what are God's thoughts toward us? Is he up there thinking up dirty tricks to play on us, as some of us seem to believe by the way we mistrust him? Or is he always planning the best way for us to grow in faith and love and joy through some custom-fitted combination of trials and delights? A parent who loves his child thinks about him on his bed at night, how he can do good to him. God is the good parent. A husband who loves his wife lives with her in an understanding way and thinks about her throughout the day, how he can do her good. God is the good husband. A friend thinks about how he can spend time with his friend. God is the good friend. A deliverer thinks about how he can deliver. God is our deliverer. God has thoughts toward us. Imagine, more, I dare say, than we have toward him. And that's amazing. If only we would rest in that and trust his plans for us. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans for wholeness and not for evil, to give you a future and a hope. Then you will call upon me and come and pray to me, and I will hear you. Jeremiah 29, verse 11. You did hear me, Lord, when I waited patiently for you, or not so much. You inclined to me and heard my cry, and drew me out of the pit of destruction, out of the miry bog, and you have set my feet upon a rock, making my steps secure, and you have put a new song in my mouth. Would you do it again, Lord? It's time again. I seem to get myself in trouble as often as Mr. Magoo and Tooter Turtle wrapped together. I will trust you to be working out things. I will stop trying to figure out how prayer works, and I will be patient, and I will wait for you. But do not delay, oh my God.
Thank you for listening to an Andrée Seu podcast presented by WorldMag.com, the online home of World Magazine.